There we are. We're live. It is time for, well, it's the pre-show for today's Core 2 A+ study group. That's our 220-1002 Core 2 A+ study group. And I can't hear myself yet. I don't know if you can see this. Let me bring this up. We've got about 10 minutes before we get started. This is the in-ear monitor from my right ear, I think it is. It is in two pieces. It is, that's how it popped out of my ear after the last study group 2 days ago. So I have one in-ear monitor for today. So if you look at one side, it goes in the ear. Which one have I got? No, it's the right side. So the left side was the one that popped out. The left side is now not there. So I hear half of myself. I'm half the audio I used to be. You will hear everything, though. But I'm going to put this on and see how I sound half in my ear, or one ear done. But it fell completely apart, which is disappointing. But let's say, oh, I can hear myself now in that one ear. So that's good. So we'll have to see. Is the study group always Tuesday and Thursday? Well, I'd like it to be always Tuesday and Thursday, but unfortunately, that doesn't always happen. That's the goal. We'll put it that way. That's what I would like to see. Now I'm trying to push in the earpiece in my left ear, and there isn't one. But the right one is there, so I can hear myself. I should probably turn those headphones up so I actually can hear myself, so I'm not yelling all the time. That's better. Hi, chat room. Hey, everybody. New York City is in the chat room this morning, along with Salt Lake City. There's Ottawa. We had the Canadians checking in first thing. Thank you for being here. We've got Portland, Oregon. We've got Nigeria and Houston. Holland is here, South Africa, the UK, North Carolina. Thanks for being here. We've got all 220-1002 content today. I have all these questions. Let's make sure this computer is actually started up. It is. Everything looks good with what I would like you to be able to see. The stream, quality of the stream is good because I swapped out a cable yesterday. I swapped out a cable for the video. I was getting some problems with a bad connection, a loose connection. So I happen to have another SDI cable, swapped out my SDI cable, and now everything is fantastic. More people checking in the chat room from Jamaica and Ireland and Maryland and Portland, Oregon and Ohio. We've got Virginia. There's the Floridians. Thanks for being here. California's here. West Coast checking in. Hey, Seattle. We got a lot going on. Eatonville, Washington, or Washington. I did a little research on that. Turns out that's just one of those things. Idaho Falls is here. Hey, St. Vincent. Good to have you here. Thanks for being here again. We got Charlotte, Minnesota. Thanks for being here. Kabul, Afghanistan. That'd be awesome. Appreciate you being here. Kenya, Chicago, San Diego. Lots of folks checking in. And, of course, we have people checking in from Mars. I knew there would be. Of course there is. You can't say there isn't. Let's see what we got going on here. Coffee is set. Okay. Why am I'm having a problem? Because part of the earbud is getting stuck under me and pulling my head back. You're going to see me have a whiplash in the middle of the live stream just because I can't seem to get all the wires right. Well, of course, I ordered a new earbud. They have replacements just for the single one that broke. They do have replacements, and I was able to get just one. I don't need to buy the whole thing. I just need the one. So I'm expecting that one to arrive. I don't know. It'll be next week. It'll probably be next week after the Network Plus study group, which is not great either. But I thought this would be easier. 5-minute warning, everybody. This is not the study group. For those of you that haven't been here before, or you're watching the replay and wondering, what is he doing? This is our live pre-show. So I usually come in about 10 minutes early. We got 5 minutes left. Let's check things. Since this is the pre-show, we've got our Cylons down here on my bottom right. Those are recording the video. So a separate video recorder. There's actually 2 of them here. You can't see the one that's just above it. So we get both the live and the preview. We've got also streaming box up here. The numbers are good. Data rate is 5.92 megabits per second of data going out to YouTube. And then they crunch it up and send it to you. So fortunately, I'm not sending a single stream to everybody. I send a single stream to YouTube, and then they send the unicast to everyone else. And then the cache number that's there, you kind of probably see it over there. The cache of 3% means that everything's running fine. If that number starts going higher, then more is being cached, and it usually is telling me that usually tells me that there's some problem with the network connection. Pretty much a large percentage of what we have here, Kendrick, in the chat room is Blackmagic products, just because they have sort of the right things I like to use. The 4K television presenter is the switching unit that's right in front of me. That is the switching console that's up just above my head. I have a lot of Blackmagic converters in this mix because everything is connected with the SDI. And so that is the bulk of it. What other Blackmagic? Oh, well, of course, the recorders are Blackmagic. The streaming box is a Blackmagic box. I've got some other, you don't see them down here, but the SSDs that are recording that video. I wonder if I open this up, if we can actually see. Not much better. But wait, there's more. So if we, so down there is, that's very bright, but you can see quite a bit of Blackmagic and quite a lot of dust. Got to clean that out. So I have this Blackmagic SSD, I don't know what they call it, just a connection. So I can have, I can mount those SSD drives by popping them in. And then the 2 drives up in the top are the recorders. You can see them going a lot better now with the side of this open. And just underneath that, there's the streamer, the presenter. So that's it. They're not a sponsor. I just like their stuff. Well, I not only like their stuff, it sort of fits what we need to do. There's not a lot of choices when you want to do hardware video switching, when you want to do a box that just streams. I used to have a separate computer set up that was actually in a different room that handled the streaming. Well, Blackmagic makes a box that's, this big. It's so small, and all it does is stream at 4K. Now, I don't stream it at 4K. I'm streaming to you at 1080p just because there's a lot of time delay from YouTube when you stream at 4K, and a lot of what we do is interactive, at least in this first hour. So it's only a few seconds after I say it that you see it. And yes, it is a unicast from YouTube. YouTube does not broadcast to. Can you imagine if YouTube just sent broadcasts out to the internet? That would be something. Let's see if we can fix a number of different things that we have here. We've got a lot to go through today. I have a ton of questions that are brand new. Why is the back view dark, and when we see it from the front, it's bright? Because it is kind of bright. Well, there's lights in front of me. Can't really see them on this view. You can kind of see there's a little bit of light that you could see, and it's kind of hard to see coming off my head because they're not very bright. But the rest of the room is dark. It's a dark room. It's just that in front of me, I have lights right on me, and I have lights to the background. So that's what I do with those. Let's show the background. I'm going to pop open. Oh, I need to change a few things on my screen so you can see things a little better. This is why we do this prior to. Let's hide some of these things on my screen. There we go. Let's make a little more room. I like to hide things on the screen, not because I don't want you to see them, but because it makes more real estate on the screen so that I can show the questions a lot better. Most everything on my screen is kind of boring. There we go. So when we do that, one of the things you may have noticed, Let's do check these bookmarks. So in the background, everything is kind of handled through a couple of PDU or number of PDUs. I think I have 5 different IP addressable PDUs in here. And for example, if I want to turn a light off, I can simply click on my screen. I know you're not seeing that, but a lot of people say, well, is that real back there? It is. I just have lights that I turn on and off, and that's why it's so bright back there. That's what you would expect to see, I would hope. There, turn the light back on. So yes, it is dark, but it's one of those where I've closed up all of the windows in here where they have blackout drapes over them. And I always have exactly the same lighting in here whenever I do anything. So every video has exactly the same lighting. I can set it up one time. It's always the same. Speaking of which, time for live stream, everybody. Let's see how we do with the live stream. That is ready. This is ready. You're ready. Let's, did I put the right lower third or video? Yes, I did. How about that? I thought way ahead. Let's do a live stream, everybody. Here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the January 2022 Professor Messer A+ study group. This is our Core 2, or what we call our 220-1002 study group, coming to you live from Messer Studios. We have all brand new Q&A for you today. We do new questions every month, and you can, of course, go to our website and see all of those. We have a lot to go through today. There's so much happening with the A+ certification and other things as well. The certification itself is one that we'll talk about. There's a number of things happening with a lot of people ask me questions about timing, so we'll go through all of that in just a moment. Because you're here and you're here live, assuming you're not watching this on the replay, you're able to follow along and answer questions with us by opening up a new browser window and visiting this URL, professormesser.com/QA. That will allow you to participate, to lock in your answers as we go through this, and we can see how everybody else votes as we go through these questions. There's also an app that you can use for this. Of course there is. It's called the Socrative Student app. You can grab it from your favorite app store. And you want to choose the student app, not the teacher app. And when you start it up, it will ask you for a room name. That room name is Professor Messer, all one word, PROFESSORMESSER. Make sure you spell it right, or there won't be any questions waiting for you there. And that's not what we're shooting for either. If you do all of that correctly, there will be a question waiting for you. It's on there right now. It's what we call our rewind question. It's the only old question you'll see today. It's from last month, just so we can see that we're able to get into the Q&A properly. We're able to answer the questions. And the question that is there asks, a system administrator needs to track ongoing memory usage on a server for 7 days. Which of the following would provide the best solution? Would it be Task Manager, Performance Monitor, Reliability Monitor, Services, or System Information? Lock in your answer there. As always, no answers in the chat room, no hints in the chat room. We will come back to this question in just a moment. Thanks for being here. We can't do these live streams without you. I guess we could, but it wouldn't be very good if nobody was if we didn't have anyone answering questions. It would just be me talking. I'm not sure anyone would enjoy that. Of course, you can see all of our videos as we produce them. You can go back and see all of our archives. It's all on the YouTube. Go to professormesser.com/YouTube. It's a great place to subscribe and keep track with what we're doing. Of course, there is a daily A+ pop quiz question. I put them out on Twitter, put them on Instagram. You can visit those at professormesser.com/Twitter and professormesser.com/Instagram. Now the question is probably one of the most common questions I'm getting these days is the current A+ exams, the 220-1001 and the 220-1002 were released in January of 2019. And I think we all know these exams tend to be around for about 3 years or so. Now, of course, nothing in the world has been normal over the last couple of years, but CompTIA is still doing a very good job at staying up to date. So although we don't expect there to be an exact 3-year replacement, maybe there will be. We aren't at the 15th yet. We'll have to wait and see. but we haven't seen any announcements from CompTIA on when a new version might be appearing. Let's say that somehow they're able to produce a new version on the 15th of January. That means that the estimated retirement date for the current series of exams is in July of this year. That means if you're currently studying for your A+ certification, keep studying. This means if you're just starting your studies for A+, you found the right set of exams. Never wait to see if a new exam happens to be released. It's always a bad idea. It's always a bad bet because first, you never know when that new set of exams would be released. You could be waiting months. And secondly, there's not going to be any study materials available, or very few study materials will be available when that launches. So you won't have a lot of choices in video courses. You won't have a lot of choices in books. It takes time to create those. And eventually, months go by, and finally, you'll start to see more things hit the market. That means you probably won't see anything good out there until at least July, assuming that's when this exam is going to retire. The point of this is that you want to be sure that you get this certification and put it in your pocket. Never wait to get certified. This certification is much more valuable if it's in your pocket today. And if you pass these exams today, they're good for 3 years. So there's no reason why you would ever want to wait to get certified. These two exams are both 90 minutes per exam. The 220-1001, you have to get a 675 on a scale from 100 to 900. And the 1002, the one we're talking about today, you need to earn a 700 on the same scale. The 220-1002 covers topics that are specific to operating systems, security, software troubleshooting, and operational procedures. So all of the questions that we talk about today will come from those 4 domains of the 220-1002 exam. I'll also let you know that you've got plenty on the website that can help you with this. You can go out to our Take 10 challenges. Those are 10 question practice exams we have on our site. You can find those at professormesser.com/take10. And when you do that, you'll see there are questions there for the Core 1, the Core 2, the Network Plus, the Security Plus. We've got a lot of questions there. So another free resource that's available for you on the Professor Messer website. We have a replay, a video replay of this live stream is available immediately afterwards on YouTube. There's also an audio-only replay available in podcast form. So you can go to professormesser.com/podcast, and you can download or connect to podcast links and XML for the Core 1, the Core 2, the Network Plus, and the Security Plus study groups. If you go out to YouTube, you'll notice in the YouTube video description that there are timestamps there. Well, those don't happen automatically. We have to manually add those timestamps. And my marketing manager, Lori, is listening to this replay, and she is putting in all the timestamps. Usually takes her about a day to get those available. So you can go to professormesser.com/YouTube, find the live stream video. You can then simply look at those links and click on those timestamps. So if the timestamp something you like, make sure everybody says hi to Lori since she's watching, and she's watching the live chat replay as well. It's a great way to quickly and very simply find exactly what you're looking for. Very simple. Let's see what else we have available on the site. Of course, there is our live chat. We've got a chat now that's on YouTube that we use during the live streams, but we have a Discord chat that's always available, whether we're live or not. Go to professormesser.com/Discord or click the Discord icon in the upper right of the Professor Messer website. I'm there all the time. You can send me a note. We have a lot of fun in that Discord. A lot of great questions come directly from that for people that are studying. Of course, you're going to need a voucher when you're ready to take your exam. We have discounted vouchers on the Professor Messer website that don't require any voucher codes. You don't have to scour the internet for codes and try them and see if they work and see if they don't. You don't need a plug-in for your browser. All you simply need to do is visit professormesser.com/vouchers. The discount is already applied. You don't have to worry about anything. And if you purchase the voucher from our site, not only first are you not paying full price for this voucher, but I will give you a copy of my Exam Hacks ebook for free. This is a series of, I guess, exam hacks or life hacks that can help you study better. It will help you during the exam. And if you have to take an exam again, I give you some tips on how you can plan and prepare for another time through that exam. These are available at professormesser.com/vouchers, another one of those that's available to anyone who visits the Professor Messer website. Let's go back to that question we asked earlier, which was, a system administrator needs to track ongoing memory usage on a server for 7 days. Which of the following would provide the best solution? Would that be Task Manager, Performance Monitor, Reliability Monitor, Services, or System Information? We can see that 71% of you have said Performance Monitor is what you would use. We've got 13% that said Task Manager and 12% that said Reliability Monitor. I think that's close enough as a tie. And then we've got 2% tie for third place with Services and System Information. All 5 of these are real things. So if you are looking through Windows or you don't recognize any of these terms, make sure you make a note of these. Go back to your exam objectives. Make sure you go back to the videos. This is really going to help you quite a bit, knowing what each one of these does, these features does, these utilities. There's different capabilities in Windows. You need to know how to use all of them. The one that most people chose, 72% of you chose Performance Monitor. And you chose that because it's a perfect use for long-term statistics, being able to see what's happening over time with hundreds of metrics inside of Windows. There are metrics available for the memory, the CPU, temperatures, drive space, all kinds of different metrics. It is amazing the information you can gather from Performance Monitor once you start digging into it. You can also set alerts so that you can be informed if any of these metrics happens to be hit. You can see a long-term and store long-term statistics. We often pull up Performance Monitor and we're just looking on our screen, but it will save this data, and later on you can load this data back up and have a look over a very long period of time. So if you're trying to create a report or view information over an extended period of time, for example, 7 days of a server, this is a great solution for you. Performance Monitor is the right answer there. Reliability Monitor helps you understand where problems may be occurring. Task Manager tells you a real-time view of what's happening on your system. Services is there so that you can manage, enable, disable, or set parameters on the background services running on your operating system. And System Information gives you an overview of how your system is configured. The only option here that tells you anything about long-term statistical analysis is Performance Monitor, and 73% of you got that one absolutely right. Well, we've got brand new questions ready to go for this study group. We'll get to this Q&A in just a moment. I have a performance-based question coming up. We don't want to miss that one. In the chat room, Joe, though, shows up with the $5 super chat. Thank you, Joe, for the support. Joe says, you are inspiringly selfless, which is difficult to say, but I think I got through it. Thanks, Joe. It's a lot of fun doing these live streams. We really would not be able to do this without you. So you're the one that really makes it work. It's a win-win, I guess, because we love doing it and we love that you're here. And thank you so much for the support. Let's do a performance-based question. Now, for those of you, if you've never taken a CompTIA exam before, you may not realize that the first handful of questions you get on your exam are not multiple choice questions. The one we just did, that was a multiple choice question. You had a question and the multiple answers to choose from. Well, there is a series of questions you get at the beginning of your exam that are anything but multiple choice. They could be fill in the blank. They could be putting you at a command prompt and asking you to perform a function. You might be putting things in order from highest to lowest or fastest to slowest. It might be a matching question or a drag and drop. You just never know what you might be running into. So I have for you a performance-based question. This one happens to be a matching question. I guess in a way it could be a drag and drop question. Here is the question that I have created for you that is this performance-based question. So I have four descriptions on the page, and I have 7 different Linux utilities listed. I want you to match each of those Linux utilities to the description. You'll notice that I have more Linux utilities than I have descriptions, which means there will be some left over at the end. It's not as easy as you might think. It's not as easy as just filling in all four and you're done and maybe moving some around if you don't think it's right. So make sure you punch that in as the right utility in this view. Now online, it's going to be doing, you're going to be working with something that is really a fill in the blank, because I don't have a way to drag and drop with the online system that we use. So you can simply put A, B, C, D, and maybe put A in the right answer, B in the right answer, C in the right answer, and D in the right answer. That'd be the easiest way to do it. I think that would, and then remember what you put down, because when you click submit, it doesn't show it to you anymore. Well, that's just how it works. That's just how it goes. So we'll have to figure out the details of that. This Linux utility that we have here and these descriptions that we've added to this mix are extremely challenging, because there are a lot of Linux utilities listed in the CompTIA exam objectives. It is extensive. You have to know quite a few. So make sure you're familiar with them. I think it might be very helpful as you are doing your studies to know what each one of these are. And this is just a small number of them. Every single one that's listed here is listed in the CompTIA exam objectives. So make sure you are familiar with each of those utilities. If you see one you don't recognize, make a note. Make sure you go back. I have an entire video of that, and we'll talk about that video in just a moment. Plenty to look at there. Lock in your answer. Go to professormesser.com/QA to lock in your answer. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. We'll figure this out as we go through. The Linux and Mac OS commands are effectively identical on the exam. If you are running Mac OS or you are running Linux, although they are technically different operating systems, one being a Unix-based and one being Linux, they're close enough that the commands are relatively similar between those. And there are a number of these Linux commands that are the same even in Windows. So you might see some overlap there. Not quite as many as between Mac OS and Linux, however. Oh, in the chat room, user saying I had an interview with some of these Linux utilities. This is a very common thing to ask in a technical interview. Oh, tell me how you've used PS on a Linux machine. You know, there's just one of those, and then you have to go through the entire process to figure out which one is it that you used and how did you use it. There's a whole conversation you can have just from these Linux utilities. Let's see how you did with this one. Let's start with the very first one on our list. Find a word. Well, for those of you listening on the podcast side, I didn't even go through the descriptions, which are find a word contained in a text file, run a command with elevated permissions, change the authentication credentials for a user, and set a file to be read-only. The different commands you can use are passwd, chmod, dd, pwd, sudo, grep, and chown. So let's see how you do. Let's start with the first one. Find a word contained in a text file. Is that going to be passwd, chmod, dd, pwd, sudo, grep, or chown? So let's step through the first one. Finding a word that is contained in a text file is grep. Grep is the utility that we would use to find text that is contained within, it can be a very small or very large text file. One of the things you do a lot in Linux is look through a lot of files, a lot of configuration files, a lot of text files, a lot of log files, and you need some way to quickly find this little needle of information within this haystack of data. And grep is a very, very fast way to simply find whatever that might be and identify it and show it to you on the screen. Instantly find exactly what you're looking for. Grep is a very powerful utility. Seems like it's very simple, but it's actually really, really powerful and very useful. There's a number of Windows flavors of grep you can get as well. And why wouldn't you? Because it can be used and can be come in handy on many different operating systems. Let's do another one. Well, the B was run a command with elevated permissions. If you've ever had to do this and you're the administrator of that Linux machine, then you are performing a sudo. You're performing the supervisory functions, the root function. Although the sudo command even has functions that would allow you to run a program as a different user if you wanted to. That's also another good one to use. But this is very common if you are running as a non-administrative user, which is really what you should be doing on your Linux machine, and then you have a certain program or utility you would like to run with elevated permissions, you use the sudo command and then the utility, and then it would be able to provide that to you. Let's do the third one. Third one on our list was change the authentication credentials for a user. So for those of you on the help desk, you're resetting a password. That's what that means. Changing the authentication credentials means you're doing a password reset. And the command that allows you to do a password reset is not pwd, which is print the working directory to the screen, but it is passwd, which is changing the password. So if you chose passwd for changing the authentication credentials, you got it absolutely right. And the last one on our list was set a file to be read-only. The command that allows you to do that and so much more is to change the mode of the file, the mode of that particular item in Linux, and you do that with the chmod command or chmod command, if you want to say it that way. But chmod is the command that allows you to set and modify the different settings for the file. Who owns the file is chown. How the file is configured on the system. Is it read-only? Is it read-write? Is it an executable file? That's what you would use. You would use chmod to make all of those changes. So pretty useful to have these utilities. And of course, the ones we did not use were, we used passwd, we used chmod. We didn't use dd. The dd command is primarily used for copying or imaging a partition or a disk in Linux. It's a great way to do an entire image backup of a Linux machine. It's very efficient. It's built into the Linux operating system. It's not a lot of frills, and you have to really understand the command line, but an extremely useful utility. pwd, I mentioned, was print working directory, so we went through that one. sudo we did, grep we did, and chown is not one we did. I did talk about the chown for changing the owner of the file as well. If you want any more information on any of these utilities, maybe there's terms here or utilities you didn't recognize, or you would like to see the entire list of utilities with a demonstration for each one, it's in my videos in the 220.1002 section 1.9. The name of the video is Basic Linux Commands. You find that utility, it has everything in there. I step through one after the other and give you a demonstration on the screen, which is kind of fun to do too. Basic Linux Commands, section 1.9 of the 220.1002. Well, there is your performance-based question of the month. Hopefully you were familiar with some of those Linux commands. A number of you in the chat room saying, I got 3 of those. I got all of them correct. You folks did really well with locking in what those answers might be. Let's do some more 220.1002 questions. Let's do a multiple choice-based question. This question asks, an attacker has duplicated a trusted MAC address to gain access to a wireless network. Which of the following would best describe this attack? Is it 0-day, brute force, social engineering, denial of service, or spoofing? An attacker has duplicated a trusted MAC address to gain access to a wireless network. Which of the following would best describe this attack? Is it 0-day, brute force, social engineering, denial of service, or spoofing? Do you think you know the answer? Go to professormesser.com/QA. Be good if I put that on the screen. There it is. So you know where to go to be able to do that. Remember, no answers in the chat room, no hints in the chat room. We have to figure out what these are as if we are sitting in the room taking the exam for the very first time and trying to figure out what the right answer might be. We don't have Google. We don't have friends. We can't use our phones. We have to make a guess. So make your guess by going to professormesser.com/QA and locking in your answer. This would be a good one to go through. Whenever I go and start working with these questions or start stepping through the problems, I try to put questions or answers on here that are all real things. And in this case, each one of those is a real thing. That doesn't happen every time. It's just one of those situations where sometimes I have to put something different to kind of throw you off. Sometimes they don't exist. But in this particular example, all 5 of these answers really do exist. Now, on your exam, you usually get 4 answers. Whenever we do these videos, whenever I give you Q&A, I tend to put an extra answer in just to make it a little more difficult. But in this case, all 5 of those are real things. So again, if any of these look unusual, you're not quite sure what I'm referring to, you don't know what those particular type of attacks do, make sure you go back and reference each one of those. I have a separate video, I think, on every single one. So you can really step through and understand exactly what that attack brings and what you can look for to see if that attack is occurring. Let's see how you did with this one. An attacker has duplicated a trusted MAC address to gain access to a wireless network. Which of the following would best describe this attack? Is it zero-day, brute force, social engineering, denial of service, or spoofing? And you can see 89% of you say that it's spoofing. That's a pretty large number. Now 90%. Did we all get it wrong or did we all get it right? Because you can see we effectively have a four-way tie for second place between brute force, zero-day, social engineering, and denial of service. Well, the key here is that someone is gaining access to the network by modifying or making their MAC address match a filter that's already available. So they're effectively changing their MAC address to be something it really isn't. Well, in the world of security, we refer to that faking, that pretending to be something else as spoofing. So if you're creating a web server and trying to make that web server look like a real one that's out there, you're spoofing the web server. If you modify your MAC address so that it matches someone else who's trusted on that network, you're spoofing the MAC address. It's kind of an odd word we use for that, but you certainly see it in emails. If you go through your spam folder, you'll see lots of email spoofing going on. Very common to sneak through or to try to sneak through your filters. If you've ever received a phone call and the phone call looks like it's coming from a number you know, then someone could be performing caller ID spoofing, which is not unusual. Very common to see that. And then man-in-the-middle attacks are often created or we often utilize features to create the man-in-the-middle attack by spoofing addresses, IP addresses, and or MAC addresses, depending on the type of man-in-the-middle attack. These types of all five of the type of attacks that we have here are important to know, not just spoofing. So make sure that you understand the differences. For example, brute force attack usually is related to someone trying to gain access with a username and password, and they just try a lot of different passwords to be able to figure out what that might be. We also have social engineering. Social engineering obviously is someone trying to gather that information using some type of social means. Maybe they call and say they're from the help desk. Please allow me access to that network. We also have zero-day. Zero-day attack is one where we had no idea the vulnerability even existed. Suddenly people are taking advantage of that vulnerability, and we may not even have a patch available to be able to prevent somebody from taking advantage of that. And lastly, denial of service is when the service is simply unavailable, usually due to an attack type. So in this case, that doesn't fit the requirement we have of duplicating a trusted MAC address. In this case, very obviously, 90% of you got that one right. Very obviously, spoofing was what we were looking for. You did very well with that one. Let's do another one. I've got another question available for you. This question asks, a user's workstation will not boot when a USB drive is connected. Which of the following would most likely resolve this issue? These 5 things are what we need to consider doing. Do we want to boot to safe mode? Do we want to re-image the system? Do we want to restart the Win login service? Do we want to modify the BIOS configuration? Or do we want to roll back to a previous restore point? The question again, a user's workstation will not boot when a USB flash drive is connected. Which of the following would most likely resolve this issue? Is it boot to safe mode, re-image the system, restart Win logon service, modify the BIOS configuration, or roll back to a previous restore point? Now, some of you may think, well, I know what to do. You just unplug the flash drive. That would fix it, wouldn't it? That would be what we were looking for, but that's not one of the options. Maybe unplugging the flash drive would solve this problem, but maybe you're not able to do that. So that's not even one of the options that you have available. Can't do it. This, whenever you start going through the different options available, you should be able to throw out some that, probably not that one, probably not that one. Could be this one. So any way that you could narrow down what these might be would be fantastic. So go through this list. I think it's time to get a sip of coffee, everyone. Everybody. Everybody take that sip. That's for the folks on the podcast wondering, why did he go away? Because we are wetting our whistle. We're getting there. If you're someone who is working through these problems and trying to figure out what you would do, this is the one, as you can see in the question, is asking, what would you be the most likely way to resolve this issue? That's what we're looking for. So have a way to lock these in to figure out the details. Let's see how you did with this one. The question asked, a user's workstation will not boot when a USB flash drive is connected. Which of the following would most likely resolve this issue? Would it be boot to safe mode, reimage the system, restart when logon service, modify the BIOS configuration, or roll back to a previous restore point? Well, there's a few very key pieces in this particular question. One of the key pieces is that we are very interested in booting the system. That's the first thing we know. We're booting it up. We're starting it up. We're powering it up, or we are restarting it from a system from the very beginning. This is the part during the boot process where the system will look at all of the different drives on your system, and it will boot in whatever order is configured in your BIOS. And you can see that 81% of you have said, that's what I would do. I would change the BIOS so that the boot order was different and it would no longer go to your USB drive to boot, which is unusual to have that. Maybe if you're on your own system, it may be something that's very common, but in a user system, probably not, which means that it tries to boot, it sees the flash drive. Maybe that flash drive has been used as a boot drive before, but it doesn't have the files anymore for the operating system, and then everything just stops and creates a problem for everybody. So what we need to do is tell the system, don't go to the flash drive first, go to my SSD first, go to my hard drive first. Then if those aren't available, go to the flash drive. And a very easy way to do it in the flash configuration or the BIOS configuration to determine what starts first can tell you to move the flash drive farther down in the list and be able to make it so that it is no longer something that you would use. That flash, the order is usually listed under a boot menu somewhere in your system. So on this particular system, this is an old machine that has a CD-ROM drive. I think it's actually a virtual machine. A CD-ROM drive, removable devices, hard drives, 2 of them there, and then a network boot. So the way that you would fix this problem is you would simply take removable devices and move it down so that it happens after the hard drives are hit. And then you're good. You're up and running, and everything's working the way you would expect. Now, what about these other answers? For example, booting to safe mode. Well, booting to safe mode is a common troubleshooting task, especially if you need to change a configuration of Windows, or perhaps if your system is not getting and working properly in a full-blown installation of Windows. But it doesn't help the boot process. Booting to safe mode is booting just like anything else. And if you have a USB flash drive, it would boot from the flash drive first before getting to the Windows configuration that would then allow you to get into safe mode. So unfortunately, booting to safe mode, we can't get there because the flash drive is there. So that one's not going to work. We've got 2% of you that said restart the Win logon service, which if you're having problems with Windows, especially with the login process and the authentication process, sometimes Microsoft will tell you, restart that service or make a change to the registry, restart the service, try logging in again. In this case, we're not even getting to Windows. In fact, Windows isn't even listed in the question. We can't even get the operating system booted because there's a flash drive creating a problem for us. So definitely would not be restarting the Win logon service because that assumes that Windows is already running. 1% of you said reimage the system. Some of you folks just want to just blanket the whole thing, just erase everything and start fresh. That's a little extreme in this case. It could possibly resolve the problem if you were to remove the flash drive in the midst of all of that, but it doesn't resolve it if the flash drive is there, and that really was what the question was about. Reimaging the system won't help you a bit because, again, we're not even getting to the operating system yet. We're stopping at the flash drive. And lastly, rolling back to a previous restore point. Again, this isn't a Windows problem. It's a system starting up problem, and the only way you would change the way the system starts up is to modify the BIOS configuration. That is the best place to go. Those are your options. And for the one that would most likely resolve this issue, in fact, probably the only one here that really would resolve this issue, is to modify the BIOS configuration and the boot order. Hopefully, the 81% of you are pretty solid working through that one. And those of you that answered safe mode and some of the others, now you know exactly why we would modify that BIOS to resolve this issue. As you can tell, there is a lot of information on this exam. We have already talked about things dealing with the network. We've done spoofing, a little security there. We've got Windows troubleshooting we've done. We've worked with some utilities already. There's so much there to deal with. And you can see in my videos, 137 videos in my A+ course. There's a lot of content here. It's a very broad set of topics across a very large number of videos, and it can be challenging to try to encapsulate all of that into one easy to read view. So what I've done is created a set of course notes that pull all of the data directly from my exams, my exam videos. So these course notes, in fact, I have the PDF version of the course notes right here, for the 220-1002, 51 pages worth of data, and all of the text, the charts, the important graphics, everything that you would need to understand exactly what's in the videos is all in these PDF files. Everything is there. So you don't have to worry about, am I getting the right notes? Do I have to go through every video to get all the right notes? What am I going to work through? The best way to do it is grab the notes from my website. Go to professormesser.com/1002 notes. You can also get my notes and practice exams as a combo and save a little bit of money if you buy both of those at the same time. You've got a lot to work through here, and maybe this can help you in your studies, speed things up just a little bit. It doesn't replace watching the videos. It doesn't replace reading your book. It doesn't replace hands-on, but it's a great way to have a summary of this data once you're through all of those other processes. You can find that at professormesser.com/1002 notes, and we appreciate your support of the website. Let's do more questions. I've got another one here. How are we on time? We're doing really good. This next question asks, which of the following scripting methods would be the best choice for managing Windows Server? Which of the following scripting methods would be the best choice for managing Windows Server? Is it PowerShell, JavaScript, Shell Script, Python, or batch file? This may be an argument because I've made it the best choice. We'll have to argue about what the best choice might be. Which of the following scripting methods would be the best choice for managing Windows Server? Is it PowerShell, JavaScript, Shell Script, Python, or batch file? If you think you know the answer, lock it in at professormesser.com/QA. Please, no answers in the chat room. Please, no hints in the chat room. We'll figure it out. So on the last question in the chat room, Chris put the point, Apollo says, changing the boot order so the USB is lower in the list, wouldn't that create issues later on if you wanted to boot from the USB? Yes, it would, because it would always go, it's like the reverse situation. It goes to the SSD and the hard drive first instead of booting from the flash drive. What if you really needed to boot from the flash drive? You'd have to go back into the BIOS, change the boot order so the USB has a higher priority, restart your system. So you do have a few options there whenever you're working through what it might be. So I think that's where you should focus, is really try to figure out how you would work this problem. And I like that you're thinking past the problem, thinking later on, what if I want to go back and be able to see that? Well, now we need to know how to undo what we did. You'll notice in my BIOS video, I even mentioned, this is from the 220-1001. So in the Core 1, I even mentioned, if you're in the BIOS and you're changing the BIOS, take a picture. Because later on, you may need to go back and put it back the way you had it, especially if you don't remember what that way might have been. So that's one of those really nice backups that you can do. Because you got your phone with you. Just grab the phone, take a picture, now make your changes. Because it's hard once the BIOS is there. You can't really, well, in the newer UEFI BIOS, it's a little bit easier. But in the older traditional, and even in the UEFI BIOS, it can be difficult to back up the BIOS configuration. So it's nice to just take a picture, and you're good. That's all you need. Just take a picture of that. Now, let's have an argument. Let's figure out which of the following scripting methods would be the best choice for managing Windows Server. Would it be PowerShell, JavaScript, Shell script, Python, or batch file? Let's see how you answered the question. You can see 78% of you say PowerShell is what you would use. You've got 10% that say shell script. You've got 5%, 4%, and 3% that say JavaScript, Python, and batch file. So the vast majority here is saying PowerShell is what you would use. Let's see if that's what I chose and if that really would be the best choice for managing Windows Server. PowerShell is what I chose. It was the answer I was looking for this question. And it's because, first, it's something that's integrated into Windows. In some cases, already in Windows and ready to be used. And you can install it if it isn't. The thing that's great about PowerShell is that it looks like a command line, but it does so much more than the traditional Windows command line allows you to do. You can use commandlets. You can have all kinds of interesting scripts that are built into PowerShell and add on to those scripts. And you can create standalone executables from these, which makes it easy to distribute to others. The part that is probably most important is that it is integrated into Windows. So unlike the command prompt that's in Windows that really doesn't have a way to manage an Active Directory infrastructure, for example, the Active Directory is so integrated into Windows, so we would use PowerShell. PowerShell has hooks that would allow you to really control the backend process of Windows, all from this command line. If you need to make some type of maintenance or administratively control the services on your system, you can do it in PowerShell. You need to make a change to a registry, do it in PowerShell. You need to modify a detailed configuration of Windows, maybe control it restarting, you can do that in PowerShell. These are things that you normally would not be able to do in the traditional command prompt that you would find in Windows. And that's why PowerShell is so useful for people that are managing Windows Server. The disadvantages of PowerShell, I guess, is that if you're not in Windows, you don't have it. That's really the disadvantage. PowerShell is so useful and so powerful, just as the name implies, that I often tell people if you're looking to have a skill on your resume that will move it up in the list, that will make people look at this resume and understand that you have more important skills than perhaps others, is that you need to have a very good understanding of how to use PowerShell and or a very good understanding of how to use Python. Those are the two super hot scripting languages, at least right now, and probably for the foreseeable future, because they allow you to do so much in these operating systems. Python became incredibly popular in orchestrating cloud-based systems, but is used for so many other things. And PowerShell, of course, has such a useful function in a Windows operating system that it is the clear leader if you need to do any type of automation in Windows. So that's why I tell people you want to do better, you want to have more, you want to increase your knowledge and be able to have skills that you can use throughout your IT career, then you want to learn PowerShell or you'd like to learn Python. Now, I was doing batch files and shell scripts. Are those important? Yes, they are. You should have a basic knowledge of those, but they are limited in their ability to do things on a system. If you really want to extend the capabilities of the operating system and extend the capabilities of your automation, you need to be able to use PowerShell or be able to use Python. And of course, JavaScript is a scripting language that allows you to do things in a browser. We don't tend to modify or do things in a browser. It can be useful in certain situations, but doesn't have quite the same impact on your ability to control a system than you would have in PowerShell or that you would have in Python. Those are incredibly useful. Make sure that you are familiar with those. And if you did choose PowerShell, 78% of you got that one absolutely right. So if you're on a Windows machine, is there a good reason to use the command prompt over PowerShell? Well, if you're just simply running a batch file, has nothing to do with the underlying configuration or management of a Windows machine, then maybe you could get away with the CMD. And in fact, many machines that users are using may not have PowerShell installed. So you may want to use a traditional batch file with those. Or if you want to really control that system, you may have to install PowerShell on everybody's system so that you can push out these commandlets and make sure those are all working as well. Let's do another question. Before we do, I want to mention DDarst304 in the chat room with the $19.99 super chat. Bring in the heat. Thank you so much for your support. DDarst304 writes, I want to say thank you to you and your team. Listen in, Lori, for helping me pass my Security Plus. Congratulations on your Security Plus exam and that new certification. You are awesome for everything you do. I don't know if that's entirely true, but certainly I'll take it in the context of this live stream. It's strange to hear you speak at normal speed since I always listen to you at 1.5 LOL. It's one of those things. I listen to myself at double speed when I'm editing, so I understand exactly where you're coming from for that. And it is one of those, I always speed up the things that I'm watching on YouTube. If I'm watching a demonstration, a utility, or somebody teaching something, I'm always speeding it up. So I absolutely get it. This is the normal speed. And for those of you interested, half the emails I get about how fast I talk in the videos, half of them are telling me to go faster. Half of them are telling me to go slower. So use that cog wheel at the bottom if you're watching this on a replay, and you can speed things up without me having to change the pitch of my voice in there. This is the normal speed for me. This is one that's very common. So I'm fantastic to hear about your Security Plus certification. That is such a hard certification to get. Congratulations on that. Thank you for your support, and thanks for the super chat. We really do appreciate it because it does help motivate us. Helps not only keep the lights on, but helps keeps us moving forward as well. We really do appreciate those. Let's do another question. This next question asks, an administrator would like to identify all incoming IP addresses to a web service. Which of the following would provide this information? Would it be traceroute, NSLOOKUP, netstat, ping, or services? An administrator would like to identify all incoming IP addresses to a web service. Which of the following would provide this information? Would it be traceroute, NSLOOKUP, netstat, ping, or services? See if you know the answer. If you do, there's your link. Lock in the answer. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. Instead, go to this link right on your screen, professormusser.com/QA. Lock in that answer. It's time for another coffee break. One of the things that I think helps when we make these videos is one of the jobs that I had sort of later on in my career, the bulk of what I did was systems engineering, or sales engineering is what some people call it. So I would go from place to place to place to place and constantly talk to people about, here's some cool technology, let me break it down for you and what's happening behind the scenes, and then let's demonstrate it and show you what's really happening with it. This is sort of an extension of that, sort of an extension of being able to take some of those, I want to call them communication skills or lack of communication skills, and sort of bring them to the internet. So it's a nice combination. It worked out pretty well with that. See if you happen to know this one, though. Whenever you start working through these questions or these problems, it's nice to break them out into smaller pieces, and this would be a good one that you could use to break out. And of course, all of these are real things, so make sure you think about what these might be. There's another $4.99 super chat from MK in the chat room asking, what do I think is an entry-level job in the networking field? I'm going to hold that question for the after show because I'll take a lot of questions there, and that's a great one to start with in the after show. We'll put you number one on the list when we do that entry-level in networking. That's a good one. I have some ideas on things that might be able to help you too, because I used to be a network administrator, dealing with routers, switches, at the times MALs. What am I talking about? An MAU, a MAL. So we'll talk about first how to connect and get these entry-level jobs in networking. Then we'll talk about how old I am. We'll go through, why were you using that? What was going on that? We'll figure it out. Let's go to this question first, though, which asks, An administrator would like to identify all incoming IP addresses to a web service. Which of the following would provide this information? Would it be traceroute, NSLOOKUP, netstat, ping, and services? Let's see how you answered. You can see that 63%, we're not quite as certain on this one, chose netstat. We have 15% said NSLOOKUP, 13% said traceroute. It's kind of a two-way tie for second place. And then a kind of a tie for third place between ping at 5% and services at 3%, which is certainly a Windows utility. So we have this web service. We're running a web server on a machine. We got a lot of people connecting to this web server. This is inbound communication, being able to work through this. So we want to know, what could we use to see exactly who's connecting to this web server? One a great tool to be able to see this is netstat. It stands for network statistics. Not too far of a reach on that one. Netstat is available on Windows. It's available in Linux. It's available in Mac OS. It's available on tons of different operating systems because it is so powerful. And netstat has a lot of different features. It's kind of a Swiss Army knife of network statistics. You can get lost in there. You can view a lot of things on your screen that you won't recognize that are just unusual because it goes deep. But one of the things it does really, really well is show all the active connections coming into a system and indeed going out of a system as well. This question happened to be very specific to wanting to solve a particular problem, but netstat solves a lot of different kinds of problems, and showing all the active connections is one way to do it. If you're in Windows and you're at an elevated prompt, you can run netstat with a -B, and it shows you not just the network connections, but what executable, the binary, the executable that's being used so that people are communicating outbound or inbound to what binary. So you can see what programs are in use. Sometimes a good way to find programs or utilities that are running that you had no idea were running. And there is a netstat-in. If you notice when you run netstat, sometimes it slows down because it tries to resolve all of those IP addresses to names. Sometimes you just want IP addresses, or you just want it to go faster. Use netstat-in and it will go faster. That is the go fast option. And if you need a name, I guess you don't use the -in, but often we're just dealing with IP addresses. And that netstat-in, a much more efficient way to run that netstat command. This means that our answer was indeed netstat. The 65% of you that chose answer C, netstat, got that one absolutely right. 15% said NSLOOKUP. NSLOOKUP is a great utility to be able to query a domain name server or the domain name service on a server. That DNS will allow you to resolve a name from an IP address or an IP address from a name, along with a lot of other things that you can do with DNS. But it doesn't tell you who might be connecting to your web server. It just doesn't tell you that. So that's not going to help you with the IP address. How am I going to get the IP address to do an NSLOOKUP if I don't know who's connecting? That's sort of a chicken and egg problem. We have traceroute. Traceroute, great for being able to see all of the different routes, all the different router hops from one particular IP address to another on the network. But that doesn't tell us who's talking to our web server. We need some way to view who's communicating to the web server. That was really the question. Traceroute won't provide that at all. Ping, another great utility, probably one of the most common utilities that you would use, is ping. But ping doesn't tell you who's connecting to your web server. You're pinging something else. That's an outbound connection from your machine. Ping doesn't give you any information on who may be connecting to your machine. It's really more of a troubleshooting utility. Probably of these 5, ping will be the one that you will end up using the most. It just happens that way. And lastly, services. That's a Windows utility that allows you to manage, start, stop, change configurations of the background services on your Windows machine. Doesn't tell you anything about who's connecting to that service, however. The only option here that provides you with a list of who might be connecting to your machine or to your web server is indeed netstat. Netstat's a great utility. And in the video I have for netstat, which is under section 1.4, Network Command Line Tools, I demonstrate netstat, and we can see connections that are either inbound or outbound from my computer. Extremely useful utility. If you're watching this video for continuing education unit credit and you would like to receive an email from me that qualifies that you were here and you deserve 1 hour of a webinar category CEU, then please follow these instructions so that I can send you this email. Go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website, click the Contact Us link. That brings up a form where you can put your name, your email address. In the subject line of that message, put 220-1002 or Core 2 A+ Study Group, January 2022. Just some combination of those so I can understand where this particular word came from. And then in the body of the message on a line by itself, please put the super secret code word of the month, NetStat. NetStat is the super secret code word of the month. And then if you wanted to put anything else in that body of that message, I read through every single one of these. I don't necessarily, I'm not able to reply back to all of these because I get hundreds of these requests every month, but it's something that I like to read through. I like to read what you put in there. And I do read through every single one of them. If you don't want to put anything, that's fine too. I know what you're here for. Put the word NetStat, click send. I'll send you an email. No problem. I got you covered. Either way, you'll get an email from me if you follow those specific instructions. Following the instructions is part of the process for earning the CEU. Go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website, click Contact Us, name, email, subject line of January 2022 Core 2, and in the body of the message, put the super secret code word NetStat. That'll get you that email. It takes me about a week or so to get those back to you, but I will get it back to you, I promise. If you need them, if you're short of time, if you're trying to gather these CEUs for a particular reason, feel free to let me know. I know it's top of the hour. Yeah, let's get one more question in. We can do another one, right? I think we can. This last question of the first part of the study group is not this one. There it is. An administrator, that administrator's super busy. An administrator would like to prevent kiosk computers in the lobby, a kiosk computer in the lobby, from connecting to the wireless network. Which of these would provide this functionality? Is it MAC filter, DHCP reservation, FDE, static IP addressing, or IPS? An administrator would like to prevent a kiosk computer in the lobby from connecting to the wireless network. Which of these would provide this functionality? Is it MAC filter, DHCP reservation, FDE, static IP addressing, or IPS? If you think you know the answer, there's your link right there on the screen, professormesser.com/QA. Lock in the answer. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. This would be a good one. Can a kiosk be a thin client? I guess it could be, sure. Why not? Or it might not be. Not important for this question, but it certainly could be. Is it a known PC in the lobby or random guess? Sure. Either one. Doesn't matter. When you think about a kiosk computer, I don't want to give too much away because I don't think that's necessarily part of the exam objectives, or maybe it would be. A kiosk computer is one that you would have in the lobby that just has one particular function, or maybe it's locked down to do one particular thing. If you've ever walked into a home improvement store, at least the ones that are here in the U.S., you'll notice right next to the front door is a desk with a chair and a computer for filling in job applications. We don't hand out paper anymore. You just sit down and you fill out your job application right there on the kiosk computer. Maybe that'll give you some context that you can use to figure out this question. Or maybe it's just confused you more. Either way, well, we'll get in there and figure out the details of this. We should know what these happen to be. PG Bluster in the chat room, the $5 super chat. Thank you for your support. We appreciate that. PG has a question. How do you know there are 256 students at the moment? I guess you're referring to the number that's up here, the number that have answered. Well, I don't. I'm going with what it's telling me. There are 260 students that are in answering this question live right now. There's a lot more watching live than answering this. So we have more on the live stream. You'll notice the numbers on the live stream are a little bit higher, because the ones that are 261 are the ones that just happen to be logged in right now. And obviously, it's something you can only do if you're watching this live. So that's something that they keep count on on this particular system, which is kind of nice. Let's see how you did. Speaking of the online Q&A, the question asked again, an administrator would like to prevent a kiosk computer in the lobby from connecting to the wireless network. Which of these would provide this functionality? Is it MAC filter, DHCP reservation, FDE, static IP addressing, or IPS? Really didn't fool anyone on this one. I thought I would be able to pull a few people off. I guess I did with this one, but 83% of you say MAC filter. That's probably the perfect way to prevent this device from connecting to the wireless network. We also have 9% that said static IP addressing. Static IP addressing is great if you don't want to administratively configure a system, or you wanted it to be exactly the same IP address every time. You could do this either manually through a static IP address or manual addressing. You could also statically IP address through a DHCP reservation. So you boot the machine up, it still retrieves the IP address via DHCP, but because there's a reservation, it gets the same IP address every single time. Very common to do if you have a system where you never want the IP address to change. Sometimes that's the case. Very easy to make that happen. We have IPS. 2% of you said IPS, an intrusion prevention system. Having an IPS block individuals on the network that are legitimate, probably not the best way to use an IPS. And in fact, many IPS systems will not block by IP address. That's not what an IPS does. An IPS looks for known vulnerabilities and blocks traffic coming through that could be trying to exploit those vulnerabilities. IPS is not used to manage what devices can connect to what network. It certainly shouldn't be used that way. And lastly, FDE, just an abbreviation for full disk encryption. FDE, so if you're using BitLocker in Windows, it encrypts every bit of your drive. Everything that's on that drive is encrypted, especially in a laptop computer. If you take that laptop somewhere and then you lose the laptop, somebody steals the laptop, and you're worried, oh, are they going to have access to my data? They will not, because the full disk is encrypted when you are using BitLocker. That's the beauty of BitLocker. So that's why FDE is an option here, but nobody chose full disk encryption, probably because that's not what would prevent a kiosk computer from connecting to a particular wireless network. In this case, MAC filter is the best option that you would use here. 84% of you did choose MAC filter, and that's what I think you should use for doing that. The MAC filter, we're not talking about a Mac like an Apple Macintosh. We're talking about the media access control address, the DLC address, the physical address, the data link control address, the physical address of this device. We often refer to it as the hardware address because the MAC address on one particular network card is unique. There's not another network card, or there shouldn't be another network card anywhere in the world with that same MAC address. So the media access control address allows you to really focus on one physical interface or one physical device on that system. So if you have a wireless network and you want to keep people out of that wireless network, you can filter out any MAC address associated with that device, and it would never be able to connect to that particular network. One challenge, though, as we've already mentioned, you can spoof the MAC address on your system. Many network interface cards and the drivers allow you to change what the MAC address happens to be, which means that if you're setting security based on MAC address, I could change my MAC address and circumvent your security. Just an awful way to do security. We call this security through obscurity. The way security on your network is supposed to work is that even if you understood the process, even if you understood what was going on behind the scenes, you still would not be able to circumvent that security. But if you can look at it and you know, oh, they're doing MAC filtering, I know how to get around that. That's called security through obscurity. Making something obscure does not make it secure. So this good example of this is MAC filtering. MAC filtering, not a security method. It's an administrative method. It's a way to make things easier for you administratively, but it is not a way to make things more secure. So MAC filtering, if you've ever done it in your system, you probably have a list like this or something similar where you can put in what the filter happens to be. It's a great way to be able to manage things a little better, maybe keep devices off of a network that would not be blocked through security means, but certainly something that you should know about. And I think if you're in the process of understanding more about security, you're working on your security plus, you're working on the security sections of the A plus, the network plus, or even some of these higher level security certifications, understanding the nuances of security through obscurity are going to be very important to you. You need to keep that in mind and have all those available. This question is one that you may run into a need where MAC filtering is the best way to handle that particular problem, knowing that it isn't a security mechanism, it's an administrative mechanism. And it still has some very nice corner cases where it can be very, very useful. All of the terms we talked about today, all of the questions I asked, every topic that was on there, all comes directly from the CompTIA exam objectives. So make sure you go out to professormesser.com/objectives or go to your favorite search engine and type in CompTIA exam objectives. Download and use these objectives. They are very, very useful. They are very, very useful not only for understanding what you need to know, but before you go to take your exam, they are a great checklist. Go through the entire list, and if you can check off everything, then you're ready to take your exam. It is one of the best ways to give yourself a barometer, to do a sanity check to see, am I really ready to go take this exam? Yes or no? You should be able to tell, or at least know where to study a little more by going through the exam objectives. And they're free. Can't beat that. professormesser.com/objectives and click the link to go over to the CompTIA website from there. One of the things you'll notice in these questions is they have a very particular style to them. They have a particular tone of voice as you go through these questions. And one of the things I have found is that there's not enough good study materials out there that can prepare you for the type of questions you might get on the actual exam. So I have created a set of questions that I have written originally. They are questions that I have created to make it seem and feel as if these are actual exam questions, even though obviously they're not. These are original questions that I've created, and I've put them together into 3 separate full and complete practice exams. They're available in my practice exams book. I have one of these for Core 1 and Core 2. The Core 2 exam, 380 pages. Here's a physical copy printed on paper, which is very hard to find these days. Paper is becoming difficult to print because of the shortages with paper that we have right now. But because of that, you can either get a physical version, or you can get a digital version like the one I have here. This is a physical or a copy from my book. It's the PDF. In fact, here's a question. We're going to do a bonus question. Well, how about this? We'll do one right now. And the question asks, which of the following governmental policies manages the use of personal data? Is it PCI DSS, EULA, GDPR, or FOSS? Now, I'm using a PDF reader where I can annotate. So if you wanted to mark this up and you think you know what it is, you can click and sort of, if you use a tablet, you can write it with a pen. If you have a keyboard or a mouse, you can change what you have on the screen by using the mouse like I'm doing very badly. So you've got options for looking through and changing some of these. Now, the interesting part about this is that it's a PDF, and you would have to flip through. If you're on a system, you'd have to flip through to the right page, which it lists here. The quick answer is on page 33. The details are on page 50. But because it is a PDF, you can, of course, just click on the details. I have a link built into the PDF, which takes you to that page, gives you the question again, and tells you what the answer is. The answer is indeed C, the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation. And I explained to you why this particular answer is the right answer. Now, for me, if I'm going through this list of things, I always get these questions wrong. And for some reason, many of these practice exams that you will find will not tell you why the wrong question is wrong, which drives me crazy. So what I've done is I put every wrong answer in this book with an explanation for every wrong answer, why that answer is indeed not correct, so that you can learn something when you get it wrong. That's really the only opportunities we have to learn, is when we mess up, is when we break something, when we get an answer wrong, then we have an opportunity to learn. So this is your opportunity to say, why did I get that wrong? Even if you get the question right, I highly recommend you read through the wrong answers as well, because the question on your exam might deal with EULA, And unless you read through what an end-user licensing agreement is, then you would miss that one on the exam. So there's a lot of great detail in the incorrect answers. I also, in the book, put a link to the video where the question came from. So if you need a lot more detail, you're thinking, I didn't spend enough time on this section, you can simply click the link. It will bring up my website. It will go to that particular video, and then you can watch the video, in this case, on privacy, licensing, and policies. You can watch the video. You can read through the transcript. It's all there on the Professor Messer website just by going through and either clicking that link, or if you have the physical book, there's a QR code. You can just point your camera at it and bring up that video on your phone. Once you're done, in my PDF reader, I just click the back button, and then I can go to the next one on my list. That is my practice exams book. I love this book. I love the style of these books. This is the type of practice exam I wish I had when I was studying for these exams. So all the right answers, all the wrong answers, it's all in there, Cedric. I just showed you the wrong one. So you know the wrong answers are in there and the right answers. It's all broken out for you. Plenty of details to have that there. There are both physical versions. The digital version you can download immediately. The physical version, as I showed here, there it is. It's a big book. I will ship to you, and if you buy the physical version, you get the digital version for free. So you can read through the digital one while you're waiting for this one to arrive. In the U.S., these usually will take about a week or a few days, depending on where you are and what the weather's doing. But it's sent U.S. Postal Service anywhere in the U.S. and around the world. Find out more at professormesser.com/core2pe. We do one of these study groups every month for Core 2. We did one for Core 1 2 days ago. We did the Core 2 today. We've got Network Plus next week. We've got a Security Plus study group the week after that. So we always have something going on. If you'd like to know when the next set of study groups is going to be, you can always go to our calendar, professormesser.com/calendar. We'll show you exactly when the next one is going to be. You will never be able to miss it. And if I have to move these times and dates around, sometimes that does happen. I always update these calendars in real time. So the instant you're looking at professormesser.com/calendar, you're seeing the latest. If I ever have to change it, I change it there first thing. And that way everybody will know exactly when that is going to be. Come on back next month on February 8th and February 10th. We have our Core 1 and our Core 2 study groups where we do this again. Well, we're not done, of course. We've got a number of different topics to go through in the after show where I take questions from you. Kind of turn this whole thing around. Instead of me asking questions, you get to ask the questions. Don't forget about the practice exams, the course notes. It's all available on my site at professormesser.com/1002success. Again, I'll remind you, don't pay full price for your voucher. Don't go out to Pearson VUE and give them the full price of it. Get a discount. Go to professormesser.com/vouchers and you will get a discount for those. And lastly, you can always follow us on your favorite social media. Just type in whatever the social media thing is. professormesser.com/social media site, /Twitter, /YouTube, /Instagram, /LinkedIn, /whatever it is. And if I am there, it will take you there. And if it doesn't, then I'm not there. I try to at least have a presence on all of them, but you can't have a presence on every single one of them. All the big ones are there, though. You can certainly find me on the Twitter, on the YouTube, on the Instagram. And if you liked this video or you got something out of it, I would love it if you click the thumbs up. It does help a lot when we're talking to our representatives over on the YouTube side. They see that people really do like these things that we create, and it really does help us for creating things and doing things in the future with YouTube. Now, stick around for the after show. Even though the Q&A part of everything I'm talking about is done, we got a lot more to talk about. Stick around. We've got more Q&A, and who knows, sometimes you ask some crazy questions. We'll have to see what comes up in today's after show. Thank you for being here in this first hour, and we will see you next time on the Core 2 A+ study group. Let me click a few buttons on this side. Get rid of the graphic. There we go. I need to change some graphics on my side. For those in the chat room asking, I bought both online. Can I ship the hard copy to your U.S. address? Of course, I can ship it anywhere you would like. Just either the best way is to open up a help desk ticket in your member login. That is the best way to get in touch with me, and we can keep track of anything you might need. I can make it work on this side. We'll figure out the details. Let me change my lower third real quick so you will know where to put questions. There we go. It's time for the after show, everyone. We do one of these after shows after every A+ study group. And one of the nice things about the after show is I don't ask the questions anymore. You ask the questions, which is probably a little more fun, I would think. If you're asking the questions, well, that means that we can really go through anything you would like to know. I put a link there at the bottom. I'm taking the questions from the YouTube chat. It's also the chat that's embedded on my site on the live page at professormesser.com/live. And that's why Unity, who asked in the chat room, where do I put questions? That's where you put them. So I can see everything you're writing to have this here. A real quick question before we go back to the networking question. Christian in the chat room says, what camera and lens am I using? You can see everything that I've got set up in my studio. It's basically up to date. It certainly has the latest camera and switching information on my website at professormesser.com/studio. There's also a link on the homepage to the studio configuration where I detail the GH5S that I've got running for the camera. I've got the lens there. I've got the lights and things that I'm using. I put everything there. With those details. You'll see it all listed. I try to keep that up to date. I've got a few things I need to add to that, as a matter of fact. Some great questions coming in. We're going to come back to these in a bit because I promised we had MK in the chat room earlier with that $4.99 super chat. First, I don't think I properly thanked you for that $4.99 super chat. Thank you so much for your support. It's much appreciated. The question was, what do you think is an entry-level job in the networking field? Well, this is a good question because we don't often see entry-level in networking. You can imagine if you change the network or the network becomes unavailable, suddenly everything stops. The network is what really ties all of this together. It used to be that when the networks were just coming out, we were thinking, wow, these networks really change our ability to communicate. Well, now the networks are our ability to communicate. Everything is on the network. Everything is our voice, our data, our video, our training, our accounting, our manufacturing, our power creation, everything. It's on the network. So the network is incredibly important. There are not a lot of entry-level networking positions in many places, at least relative to the rest of IT, relative to just IT help desk, because it is more niche and it's relatively important. You don't want to hand over the ability to change network configurations to someone who's never done that before, because there's a potential they could bring the entire network down. There's a very real potential for breaking everything just by making a single change in a switch. So that's why you don't see a lot of entry level. However, it's almost the same situation with the entry level in networking as you have to entry level in security. So if you're in a relatively large geographical municipality area, and you may want to look around because there may be network operations centers, NOCs. These network operations centers are very large. You can think of them as a network help desk. They are monitoring networks. They're checking to see what's happening in very large network operations centers. You walk in, there is usually a big screen up on that you can see that shows the status of all the networking and how the uptime and availability is. Maybe it shows you where the sites that are down, they're flashing, they're up at the top of the list. A lot of places also have on this side, they'll have a map, a weather map of the geographies that are important. Let's say if this is a United States company, you have a weather map of the US, and you can see all of the bad weather, because with networking, especially with wide area networking, you may be communicating over wired or fiber connections. You could be communicating over non-terrestrial links to satellites, which can be affected by inclement weather. So if it's snowing, if it's raining, you could lose your network connection, and knowing where the storms are might help you understand why some of the things on the other screen are red. And you can see, okay, this may not be a hardware problem. It may be that we've lost power. It may be that we can't communicate to the satellite. So you can at least get some clues that way. That's a network operations center. And it's a great way to have a nice foundation of networking knowledge that you can then use to move up in the networking ranks. I think that's one of the most common entry-level networking positions. Another way to do it may be to go to an organization that's relatively small, that's got a small number of users, maybe sub 1,000. users. There's fewer than 1,000 workstations and devices on that network. You may be tasked with managing servers and networks, both. That may be your responsibility for both of those. So you have a lot more on your plate. You have a lot more responsibility, but you also have knowledge that you're learning on the networking side. For any of you that are interested on networking and you think this networking is great, when I found networks, when I understood that you could see what was happening on the network, you could understand the protocols, you could work with these routers and switches and other devices, it changed my career. That was sort of, I think, a jumping off point, or at least a major upgrade to the things I was doing in my career. And the way I was able to do this is to look and understand the packets. So one great tool that you should become familiar with, really for anybody in IT, especially the network folks, I wish more developers would use it, would be something like Wireshark or any other type of protocol analyzer, so that you could take an application, could use that application and communicate, and then look at the packets and interpret, was this application working efficiently or was it not working efficiently, and what part of it was not working efficiently and perhaps why. That's a great tool to use on the networking side. That's Wireshark. It's available at wireshark.org. There's also, I would say probably if you're working on Network Plus, that's a great place to start. A lot of people move into the Cisco types of certifications. You certainly have Cisco certifications that are CCNA is a good place to start with the Cisco Certified Network Administrator certifications. Those certifications are also very good. But even if you aren't working towards those certifications, I would recommend you get Packet Tracer, which is a free utility from Cisco where you can build a virtual network on your screen with Cisco routers, Cisco switches, other Cisco devices, voice over IP. You can go into the detailed configurations of those, and you can build out your own network, watch and send data in real time across that network, or put in a freeze frame mode and watch the packet as it goes step by step through the network, so that you can get a better understanding of what's it doing inside of that router, what's it doing inside of that switch. It's a great little utility. I say a little utility. It's an incredibly powerful utility. I don't think it gets enough credit for what it's able to provide. That's called Packet Tracer. It is free. You do have to register with Cisco to be able to download that, but it's a freebie. It's one you should have it on your system anyway, because there's going to be a time where somebody says, what if we stuck a switch right there? Or could we do redundant routers in this connection? I don't know. Let's build some out. Let's see how this would work. And in a matter of seconds, you've built out a new network config. When you start becoming very good with Packet Tracer, you can build out a network just in a minute or two, much faster than doing it with hardware. A lot of people say you should get your own router and your own switches and put them in a rack and use the cables and set them up. You could. It's a lot slower and it costs money. Why not use Packet Tracer, which is free, and you could do it in minutes, much more efficient, and has the ability to change physics, stop time, and watch the packet step by step as it goes through. It's really great to be able to understand exactly what it's doing. And if you're at a time where you're wondering, I just want something else to do. I've been studying this. I've been working on the certification. I just want to do something techie. Grab Packet Tracer. There's a lot of free Packet Tracer Q&A labs that you can get off of the internet. There's a lot you can pay for. But those labs, you can really spend a lot of time going through it, and it would make for some interesting conversation if you were to go into an interview and somebody says, tell me about yourself. What are you doing? Why do you want this job? And you could say, well, I've been doing a lot with networking. It's really intriguing to me. In fact, let me tell you about these things I just did with Packet Tracer. And I did this, and I did this, and I ran into this problem, and we did some research, and I found that I had the configuration wrong. We changed this. Everything worked great. You know, those are great stories to tell someone about something that you did. Don't worry that they already know how to use Packet Trace. They already know everything you're talking about. That's not the point. The point is you're trying to get a job, and you're trying to get across to someone else things you know and things you have done. Somebody walked in and said, I have no networking experience, but here's some things I did in Packet Tracer. Be like, okay, you do want to do networking, and you have a little bit of some skills on the networking side that can be pretty useful. So hopefully that's giving you some ideas, MK, on where you can go to get maybe some entry-level networking jobs and things you can do. But even if you don't get the entry-level job in networking, get the entry-level job on the help desk. Even if it's to change passwords, doesn't matter. Get in the chair, put on the headset, grab the phone, do it for 6 months, 9 months, a year, or whatever. It will be better than just doing, it's much more than just doing password resets. I'm really speaking badly of it. But some people feel that it's not something they want to do, or they feel it may be beneath them. Well, just you only do this for 6 months. Nobody's going to be at the help desk their entire career. They shouldn't be. They should work there for about 6 months, get their feet underneath them, sort of learn the ropes, especially in an organization. And now you know a lot of the people that work in this organization. You can look for an opening on the network team. You can look for an opening on the database team, on the server team, on the workstation team, on the Linux side, on the cloud team. That's what you're trying to do. Because once you're in the door, it's so much easier to move into those areas of the company. They already know you. They already work with you. They understand your work ethic. They understand that you've been asking them for months on what they're doing and how you can help them. Those are great things to do. So spend some time on your own knowledge, be able to tell people about that knowledge, and then you can work up from there. My first job in IT, in college, I worked as a computer operations. So I was in a data center, and I was just monitoring screens all day. It was kind of a boring job, but I was happy to do it because I knew I was learning. I was asking the people that would come in and work on those machines when they broke, I'd say, what is that? What are you doing here? What's happened with that? So you got an understanding of how these systems worked. Same thing for a help desk. My first real IT job out of college was a remote service technician. So I would go install a monitor. I would go install a printer. Maybe we didn't ship out a printer cable to someone. I would literally grab a printer cable and drive across town to deliver and plug in that printer cable. Was that a job that was so incredibly technical? It was not. Was it a job that was incredibly difficult? Probably not in the big scheme of things. There were things that were challenging at times, but delivering and plugging in a printer cable, I think we're all good with that, right? But they were paying me, so that part was good. And I was getting experience that I can then learn to move up to other jobs from there. And that's what it should bring to you, is when you get that entry level, you should be moving up from there. It makes a big difference. Let's do some more questions from the chat room. Let's see if we can go through some others that might be here. How am I? Doing great. Thanks for asking. We talked about shipping anywhere in the world. I do that. In the U.S., it's the winter right now in the U.S., so sometimes it takes more than a week, but hopefully we can get things to you in about a week, plus or minus, if you're looking to do that. This is a question that does come up often from Jesse in the chat room. Would you recommend taking the test in person or online? I like in person, but none of my testing sites are available on a date that works for me. This is really the balancing act, isn't it? I like online. I like being in person as well. If I had to choose right now, if I had to take an exam right now, I would want to take it at a testing center, because you don't have to set up your room. It doesn't have to be in a particular way. You don't have to have special software running on your system with a webcam and a microphone, and you don't have somebody watching you the whole time when you're taking this exam. And sometimes, as we have seen, the person who is proctoring the exam on the other side of that camera, sometimes they're really, really strict. And if you were to go just outside the scope, you're reading the exam, you think, I can't read what it says on the screen there. It says this right here. It says TCP/IP. Okay. They'll suddenly put a message up saying, you moved out of the camera range. You just failed. That is a legitimate thing they can do. It's part of the terms and conditions, is if you go outside the scope of the camera during the exam, they could fail you. If somebody walks in the room accidentally behind you and they go, oh, sorry. Yeah, let me get out of here. They were there a second, they could fail you. And these things have actually happened to people. So you really have to have a very secure environment. Plus, I'm worried, is the network going to drop? Are we going to lose our network, the internet? There's challenges there as well. So I love the idea of just walking into a testing center. Here's my ID. Let's sit down. I'm using their system. I'm using their cameras. I'm using whatever setup. We do the exam, and then I walk out and I'm done. To me, that's a lot less stressful. However, your point is well made. All of the testing centers around you are not available. You want to test right now, and those testing centers aren't available for weeks. What do? Or maybe even better, maybe you live hours away from a testing center. Well, yeah, testing online is a perfect solution for that. That's what you would probably want to do in that scenario. And tons of people are working online and taking these tests online and having great experiences. So you just have to be familiar with the process, watch the videos, read the details on the website, maybe go out to the CompTIA subreddit, see what experiences other people are having and some of the challenges that they have had, and make sure that you don't do what they did. Make sure that you don't lean outside the scope of the camera. And so, oh, I just failed. Make sure you don't do that. But you would not know. Sometimes people put their hand up and they'll tell them, don't put your hand up. I have to see your mouth. That's part of the terms of doing it online. And you can't talk to yourself. You can't be in an exam and say, a user in the accounting department has recently installed a new app on their Android tablet. They'll tell you, nope, stop talking. Can't talk during the exam, which technically you can't do in a testing center either, but they're very, very picky about it online. So as long as you're familiar with the rules and the regulations, online is a very good option. And it may be the best option for what you're trying to do. Let's do some more questions. Here's what I think is probably a misnomer from Clayton in the chat room. Do you think IT attracts people with poor social skills? I think every line of work attracts people with poor social skills. I don't think that's an IT thing. I have a hard time working with them. Any tips? People who I would think IT would be very appealing to people who maybe don't like to communicate. But what I have found in IT is pretty much everybody I've ever worked with in IT are people like me. Because I would go from place to place to place. As I mentioned earlier, I worked as a systems engineer. So we would see 2, 3, 4 different companies a day doing demonstrations. I'd meet people at trade shows. We'd go to their offices. We go out to lunch. We go out to dinner. That was part of the job. And what you find is the people that are working in these IT departments are just like you. They have a family. They have things they like to do. They have hobbies and things they do. They have places they went this weekend. And I don't really find that it's any different than anyone else. I certainly don't think IT has a larger percentage of people working in it that perhaps don't want to be sociable. I think that's just in general. I think any particular segment you go to, there will be people that prefer staying to themselves. Now, I think some of the things we do in IT, like programming, things where we're just working on our computer screen, they certainly can appeal to people that maybe don't want to deal with other people. I was in a job that was very social, where I was going to see a lot of people during the day, and we were having lots of conversations. So that's not something I usually think is probably true. I think that television and movies likes to make fun of it more than it is actually a thing. It's a little annoying. Goes, hi, yes, I'm the nerd from the IT department. I'm here to fix your things. Come on, can you move from the keyboard? That's not a person. That's nobody I've ever met. I don't know where that came from. It's not a real person. Now, can we be abrupt at times because the users have, poured Coca-Cola into their keyboard? Yes, we can be frustrated at times, but I think that's normal. I don't think that's an antisocial thing. So I'm not buying the premise when they start doing that. Not where I would come from with that. Wow, Jerome in the chat room with the $100 super chat. Jerome says, frankly, I wouldn't be where I am without you. Well, I'm not sure that's entirely true. Well, I'm more than happy to help you along the way, but to be fair, you did all the hard part. What a strong super chat donation. Thank you so much, Jerome. These things really do go quite a long way. We have tons of expenses with Amazon, with our cloud provider, with our website, with with certificates, it's a constant challenge. So these types of donations in the super chat are so useful. Thank you so much. It really does go a long way, and we really, really, really appreciate it. I say that every time, but we really do appreciate it. Thank you so much for that. And you're really paying it forward, because other people are going to benefit from that as we make even more. So as many as we've been talking about, there will be at some point this year a new set of A+ courses that are A+ exams that are released. And when those new exams are released, there needs to be new courses. And so those types of things help us have the ability to sit here all day, every day, and create that new content. So of course there will be new videos when those are available, whenever that is. We still don't know when that's going to be, but there will be new videos eventually, so that you have a choice. You can either take the existing exams up until they retire, which, by the way, is the right answer, or you could maybe jump into the new videos and the new courses as soon as they're available. But it takes quite a bit of time to make that available. It takes a long time to write a book. It takes a long time to make a video course. It takes a long time to make all of these course notes and practice exams and everything else. So that's one of those that is important, that we have some support, and it's great getting support from folks like you. Thank you so much, Jerome. We do appreciate it. More questions in the chat room. Let's see what I can find here. I know I'm skipping around a bit. Camille in the chat room says, thank you, Professor Messer. Got the voucher through you. You're number one, Camille. Thank you so much for that. That's another great way to support what we do. You got to get a voucher, right? If you're going to take the test, you need a voucher. I mean, you can pay full price for the test on the Pearson VUE website, but I figure if you're going to get a voucher, get it from our site. Not only do you get the discounted voucher, but it also helps us keep things going here as well. There's a win-win there as well. I love the win-wins. I think that helps everybody. More questions from the chat room. I intend to take the Core 2 exam in 2 weeks. And I guess we're assuming from this question that when you pass that Core 2 exam, you will be A+ certified. This question continues, will my certificate be null and void once the new one comes out when it comes to job searching? The certificates that you earn, the certification you earn when you pass both of these exams, is the A+ certification. The A+ certification doesn't have a version. It doesn't have a qualification to it. It's simply an A+ certification. And as soon as you earn your A+ certification, it's good for 3 years. It doesn't matter what they do with the exams. You're past that point. Once you take your exams and pass them, you've earned your certification, and the exam process is way behind you. The exam process could change every day. They could have a new set of questions every day. It doesn't matter. You're already certified. And your certification is good for 3 years. Here's the interesting part of that is when you earn your certification today, let's say that tomorrow CompTIA comes out with a new exam and a new set of objectives, and somebody takes the exam that day and they pass it because, I don't know, because they're just magical, I guess. But let's say somebody very quickly takes and earns their certification, and their certification is good for 3 years. Guess what? It's the same certification. The first person didn't earn a 220, 1001, and 1002 certification, and the second person didn't earn a 220, 1101, and 1102 certification. They both earned exactly the same cert. If you were to put them side by side, it's the same certification. The person who earned their certification 6 years ago and has constantly maintained it and renewed it every 3 years also has the same certification that you have. So it doesn't matter the process you went through or the questions that you were asked. Once you're certified, you're good. You're locked in for 3 years. So that's one that you don't have to worry about it. You're in good shape to make that happen. In the chat room, Arachi asked, do I offer private lessons? I don't. I don't do any one-on-one, or I really don't do any interactive private training. I just don't have the time. I'm just making new content. We've been working since December making new content for the new set of videos that will be coming out someday in months from now. Maybe soon, maybe later. We don't know exactly when, but we're already working on those. So if I had other things that I was doing with folks, if I had one of these live streams every day, for example, I would have no time to make any other content. So I just don't offer that. There's plenty of people out there that do. So unfortunately, it's not something I do. There's Chris D. Gamer again in the chat room with a $5 super chat. Another fantastic donation from Chris. Thank you, Chris. That super chat, Chris says, my N10007 exam, that's the Network Plus exam, starts in 2 hours. I got this. We'll let you guys know in the Discord how it goes. That's the Professor Messer Discord. Make sure you go to professormesser.com/Discord so that you can keep track of how Christy Gamer does in his Network Plus exam. No pressure, Chris. Now everybody's watching. Well, you did the super chat, right? Thank you again. Reviewing objectives at the moment. Good for you. That's one of the best things you can do before going into that exam. Review the objectives, check your notes, really get everything solidified in your head, and then off you go. So plenty of options there. Some administrative questions in the chat room. Where is the option in the checkout for both a physical and or digital copy? Well, I'm glad you asked. It is on my site. So if you go to the Professor Messer website, let's bring up a shot of this. I should be able to show my own screen. So if you were to click on the links to get the questions, the course notes, the practice exams, the combos, the audio, the success bundle, they're all here. At the top of this list that describes this, there's an option for a digital edition PDF or click the physical edition. So you can choose whether you'd like something that's electronic or something that's shipped to you with the electronic option. It's those tabs that are right at the top. They're sometimes difficult to catch, but that's where they are. And you can flip between both of those to determine whether you would like the physical or the digital. Thank you for asking. So I appreciate that. More questions from the chat room. There's some questions. People have asked some questions before, like, oh, do you know this one? Are you good friends with that one? I don't even know these people. So no, I'm literally all day, every day. I'm in this room, this dark room. So no, I don't have time to meet anyone else, I guess. That's one of the things I kind of do miss sometimes from working as a systems engineer. It was a very social job. You were constantly traveling. You were constantly meeting people. I just did 180 degrees. And when I talk to people or meet people, it's now online. So I guess I really didn't lose it. It's just I do this. So no, I don't know any of these people. What is my opinion about the Boson tests for CCNA? Now, when I got my CCNA, I did use the Boson tests. I thought they were pretty good. They do have a pretty good reputation in the industry. I think, if I recall properly, and it may not be Boson, it might have been somebody else I was using, they were based in Florida. I thought that was the case. And I'm based in Florida as well. So that was something I just kind of remembered. I thought they were pretty good. There's some great CCNA Q&A options out there, and they always seem to be ranked very high. I've not looked at their content lately. I may be speaking completely wrong based on what I did years ago. But it would be good to know. Another question in the chat room is about the new exams coming out, the overlap period, and then the final retirement of the existing exams. That question is, how long after the retirement date, I guess you meant to put there, the retirement date is released, will we have to take the exam? So CompTIA will come up with a retirement date. When they release, or say when they announce the new exams will be available on this day, they often also say, and the current exams will retire on this day. So let's say that they were to release a new set of A+ exams on January 15th. I don't know if that's going to be the case or not, but we're going to find out, won't we? Well, if that's the case, traditionally, they have given 6 months overlap until the existing exams are retired. That would put the retirement date estimated to be about July 15th. That means you could take the exam, the current set of exams, you could take all the way up to July 15th. And there will be people taking their Core 1 and Core 2 exams all the way up to the retirement date. I assure you, it happens every single time. So you've got all the way up until they say it retires. And once it's retired, they pull it, you can no longer take the exam again. So that's why it's important to know. And they will announce that eventually. They just have not officially announced the retirement date, but I'm sure they're going to be announcing that relatively soon. I would think it would be coming out certainly this quarter would be the release of the new exams. So sometime January, February, March, we should be seeing the announcement of those new exams and when the retirement date might be. Question in the chat room. This comes up also a lot. This is from Keith, who asks, do you think there's such a thing as aging out of IT? So Keith is 47, 22 years retired military, 20 years practicing IT and enrolled in A+, Network Plus, Security Plus, Cloud Plus. Who hires people like you? Well, this is obviously a concern for anybody in any industry, is ageism. You know, as an old guy myself, walking into technical jobs, you have to worry about being too old. Sometimes that helps you. Having a maturity and a knowledge foundation that you're walking in the door with can absolutely help you get jobs. But the people hiring may think, I don't know about putting this guy on the help desk. If this is an entry-level position, I don't know if they're really going to enjoy this. Maybe that would not be the best person to hire. Now, that's what they're thinking in their mind, but it's really based around this person's too old. When we are older, though, and a good example, Keith, is your experience. 22 years retired military. I bet you know some military connections or people that would love to hire somebody from the military. And 20 years IT on the side. Certainly, you know other people that are in IT. You may know people that are working for other companies who know people in IT. We've created kind of a network of people. When you get older, you start sort of widening the net. Hopefully you've got a good LinkedIn page. You've got a lot of people that are there. You've got friends and neighbors that you know. You've got people that you work with in the job now. You've got people who are your neighbors around your home. You got people that you've met in the past. Reach out to them and say, I'm looking for a job in IT. These are the types of things I think I'm qualified for. Got anything going on, or do you know anything? Is there anybody you think I should talk to? Having that connection is important. I often say this also with people that are moving from one type of industry into IT. And very often, and this is sort of the way IT works, IT's everywhere. Is it a transportation company? They have IT. Is it law enforcement? They got IT. Is it a company that is a financial services company? They have IT. So whatever you're doing now, there's probably an IT component. So a good example, someone a few weeks ago said, I work in a hospital. I want to get into IT. I need an entry-level position. And I said, go talk to your IT department in the hospital. They would love to have someone knowledgeable in the process of medicine doing, you already work there. You're already familiar with the people and the processes and where things are located. They would love to have someone like that working in their IT department. And it's someone, you already work there. They already know your work ethic. They already understand that you've been working there a while, and they know that you have an interest in IT enough that you're going to them to do it. So often you can leverage what you already know into working or getting a job in IT in one of those particular vertical markets. That may be another thing to look at. And I think it can be really, really powerful. I mentioned in my video, and I think there's a link in the video description here on YouTube, that is how to get a job in IT with no experience. And I talk about 4 different elements that you want to bring to the table. You want a formal education, you want industry certification, some practical experience, but the 4th element is knowing somebody who already works there. I've probably had in my career about 15 different positions that I've held across 5 or 6 different companies, depending on how you count when people get acquired. So I went from job to job to job to job to job to job to job throughout my career, which is probably not too unusual in the IT world. What I found, though, my first job I got in IT after college, I didn't know anyone who worked there. They really just hired me blind, and I was grateful to get it. It was that job I mentioned earlier of being the field technician. But what I found is that every job I got after that, I knew someone who worked there. And sometimes that person who worked there was in IT. Sometimes they weren't in IT. but the IT people knew that person, so there was a connection. That personal connection or someone personally vouching for you is very, very powerful. It is very valuable. And a lot of times it can circumvent shortcomings that you may have on your resume or in your experience because they're willing to take more of a risk with you because they know you. They can trust you. Yeah, even if we don't know this, we can train you on this. We need to hire somebody who works well, and then we'll train you to do anything else. That's really the hiring manager is what they're trying to do. Are you a good fit for here? Are you going to be happy to work here? Are you personable? Do you have a good work ethic? You know, the things that they hire. Sometimes it's not all about experience. And I know a lot of people will say experience is the number one thing. Often it is, but it isn't always. In fact, they might even be able to hire you a little bit cheaper because you are not as experienced, but they'll train you on the rest. So it's a give and take. There's a balancing act there. So that's really the important part. Another question in the chat room. There's a lot of questions coming in. I'm already sort of behind the scope of the chat. It's going so fast. This one is from Vintage Computer Services in the islands, who says, Professor, what's the new course you're going to do for the new year? Well, you've already been on these live streams. You know, I don't know yet. That I do have plans this year to do another course, something that is not A+, not Network Plus, not Security Plus. Let's hope this happens. I'm not even saying it's going to happen. I'm saying I have plans, the best laid plans, but I do have plans to do another brand new, never seen before course. What is it going to be? Is it going to be Cisco, something Cisco-ish? Is it going to be a Microsoft course? Is it going to be an AWS cloud course? Is it going to be a Red Hat Linux-y course? I don't know. I'd love to do all of those. All those sound great. Let's do all 4 of those. That's the problem, isn't it? All of these things take time. It takes about 6 months from the time you start a brand new, never created before course until you finally get the last video shot and the course notes out and maybe some Q&A. That's a long time. That is a long time to dedicate to one particular task. So I got to make sure it's the right one, because you don't want to spend 6 months and then at the end of it say, here is the new course, and nobody watches it. Like, we didn't need a Red Hat course. What do I care? You know, so I have to be very particular about my research, about what people are asking for, about what the industry needs, about where there are gaps in what people are able to get information on. And I got to tell you, I change my mind all the time. I will wake up in the morning and know, you know what, when I finish this A+ course, I'm absolutely going to do this. Let's lock it in. There's no question that that's what I'm going to do. And then over lunch, as I'm eating a sandwich, I think, you know what? A better idea would be this other thing. That's what we're going to do. We're going to do the other thing. That's what we're locking in. No, wait a second. What if I did that first? So I go back and forth constantly. So I don't know what it's going to be. And in the chat room, you folks you're good at telling me. Some folks are saying, no, we need Cisco. No, we need Microsoft. All of them are good choices. You're not helping at all, tech guy. You're not helping me. They're all good. Well, I guess I can't go wrong. That actually does help a little bit. So I don't know. Do I recommend an ITIL, ITIL, the IT Infrastructure Library? I really don't find that certification very useful for technical people at all. Is there some redeeming quality to ITIL that a technical person could use? Yes, there is some redeeming quality. Does it have anything to do with being help desk, second level networking, security? No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It is quite literally a manager level certification and higher. But for some reason, managers, I know for many reasons, managers feel like if it's important to the manager, it should be important to the people who are doing the actual work. And that's not always the case. That's rarely the case, quite actually. So, however, some, especially very large organizations, they love IT infrastructure library. They love it. They love it. Boy, do they love it. They think it is the bee's knees. They think it is the awesome sauce of awesome sauces. They love the fact that it exists. They love the terminology. They love the connections that are being made between the technical side and the business. And they want you to be, they want everybody in the organization to be in lockstep understanding and with the ITIL world. Well, if that's the case and they're hiring, yeah, that's what you should do. See, I'm not in any way thinking that one type of certification is necessarily better or worse than any other. All I care about in the context of what we're doing here is, would this certification get you a job or get you a better job or position you to do other things that you would like to do in the future? Well, with that company, it absolutely would. So I am on board. ITIL certification for everybody, because they are hiring if you have that. Or they would like to make sure you're trained on that once you get there. Will it be useful to you in a technical role? Nah, not really. Not particularly. It doesn't. It helps you understand why the manager makes some of the decisions they're making, but do you care really about that? You're trying to fix whatever's broken. You're trying to make sure the network continues to run. And there is a need, an important part of what you do is understanding when you are configuring the network in this way and you're setting up a network connection, you're building these VLANs and you're connecting these wide area network sites and you're building these IPsec tunnels and you're configuring all of these certificates. It's important to know why you're doing that. It's important to understand, oh, we sell insurance. We're setting up this remote site. It's a new part of the insurance that we're doing. We need to make sure they have very high-speed access to the database. That's why we're doing all of this, because it's going to make a lot of money for the company. Or maybe we're part of a city, a county, a state government, and we're setting up a brand new, well, COVID's a good example. We're setting up a COVID testing center just in a parking lot, and we got to get it running, and we've got a wireless link, and we're hooking those up. Well, there's a purpose to what you're doing. You aren't just setting up a wireless link to be setting it up. There's a reason for doing this, and there's a very important reason for doing it. So being able to link together the requirement or the need of the business or the organization to the technology is very important. And ITIL really does focus on those types of things. MK again in the chat room with the $4.99 super chat. Thank you again, MK. MK says, I am not good in fixing computer hardware. None of us were good to start with. MK asks, is it worth it for me to take A+? Well, it's perfect for you to take A+. If you're not good at fixing computer hardware, what better place to become better at fixing computer hardware than the A+ certification? That's really the focus, is to kind of get you started along the lines of the basics. Understand what a motherboard looks like. Understand some safety to be able to use those systems. Understand how to not break anything, how to not accidentally use static electricity and break some of the systems you're working on, how to take care of those components, how to remove them from the expansion cards, how to upgrade the memory in the laptop. You know, those types of things they seem obvious once you learn how to do it, but the first time you sit down and try to do these things, it's very clunky. You feel like a fish out of water. Okay, you unscrew this thing, and then what? The expansion card, there's a method, there's a kind of a system to removing and adding in a PCI Express card. Like you have to know to unlock the little lock at the bottom, or you're going to tear up your motherboard. You know, things like that you would never know unless you took the A+ exam and you learned some of those things. I think it's a very useful thing. You know, it was back, when was the iPad introduced? Was that over 10 years ago at this point? It has to be. Like 10 years ago, we introduced this new type of technology, these tablet computers. So you've got a tablet, Got your tablet computer, and now you're going everywhere. In this case, I use my tablet computer to run the slides that we're doing here. It allows me to see what slide's coming up next, and I can hit the screen, and I'm using that as the front end of what we're doing. But the tablet side, when we first introduced those, first everybody made fun of the name iPad like it was this awful name. Now it's just normal. The second thing, and this was everywhere, is that the era of the personal computer and laptop is over. We will never use computers on our desktops again. We will never walk around with laptops again. Everybody will have a tablet, and if you know anything about troubleshooting hardware, your usefulness on this planet is over. You don't even need to be here anymore. How'd that go? At the time, I was telling people, well, that's not realistic at all. If we had study groups back in the day, maybe we did 10 years ago. Have to look. Not 10 years ago, but a little in there. One of the things I said was that, okay, that's not going to happen. There's still going to be computers. There's still going to be a need to troubleshoot. There's still going to be a need to fix them. And by the way, all this does is add to the list. That's all this does, is give me more things I have to do. I have to now do a new type of troubleshooting and a new type of hardware maintenance for my tablets and my mobile phones and everything in between. So whenever somebody ever tells you this is going to change the industry, you should probably quickly go back a little bit, get a bigger picture of the world and go, really? We're going to not have any computers anymore? Because I use the tablet and it doesn't do what my computer does. So do I need a computer? Well, apparently I do. Because can't do a tablet here, can't do a tablet with this, maybe I could stream with a tablet. I don't know of anybody who does stream with a tablet, but that's not a situation either. That's focus instead on the A+ is the reason the A+ still exists and continues to be one of the most popular certifications in the industry is that is providing people with valuable information. One of the things that often I will see online, on the Reddit, on the Twitter, are people that will dismiss entry-level certifications. I don't know why they do that, because at one time, they knew nothing about this technology. But of course, they learned something to begin with. Maybe they got their A+, maybe they didn't. But they learned it somehow, even though they didn't get the certification. Somebody showed them, how do you replace this motherboard? How do you add this expansion slot? How do you upgrade the memory? How do you replace the CPU? What do you do with this thermal paste? You know, all those things still have to be learned. There's an importance to learning the fundamentals. And knowing that Windows, how to install Windows, how to troubleshoot Windows, how to fix it when it's not booting, how to understand safe mode, how to understand how to get into the BIOS, those are important too. And you have to learn them somewhere. You don't just show up in IT at the help desk knowing how all of these things work. So it's always surprising to me that people will still somewhat ignorantly say things like, you don't need any of that entry-level stuff. You should just jump right to the middle. Well, you can't jump to the middle. Why don't you just start as the CEO? Why are you starting down at the help desk? You should be an executive vice president, because it doesn't work that way. You have to learn the ropes and move your way up. And the same thing applies in IT. In fact, if you spend more time understanding the fundamentals, understand more about what's happening on the wire, understand more about these security technologies, you will be a much better technologist when it comes to working with operating systems, when it comes to working with the network, when it comes to working in security. You have a much better scope of what's going on, and you will eventually leave all of those other people in the dust. This seems to be what I have found anyway. And I suspect it will be the same thing for you. More questions. Let's keep. I love my tablet, by the way. So I'm not in any way. This tablet is a key piece of what I do here in the studio. I don't just use it for our live streams. You use the right tools for the right job. So that's the real key, is making that happen. For the folks in the chat room talking about this, the super chat piece, the super chat is something built into YouTube. If you're able to see it, I think it's at the bottom of the screen for the super chat. If it's something you see, then you can use that. If it is not, if you don't see it, then it's not available to you on YouTube. And generally speaking, I don't I just don't take donation. I don't ask for donation. I'll take your donation. Let me be clear. I will accept your donation and be thankful for it, but I don't ask for a donation. You'll notice I don't have a Patreon. I don't ask for donations on the website. I just don't want that to be the process that we do here. I prefer creating content for you that's valuable, that you can watch online. And if you need course notes, or you need practice exams, or you want an offline version of these, or you want some of the other things that we've created, I want you to get something for your money. So that's why that's there. Now, if you're looking at the YouTube or you're looking at this video on my site and you don't see an option for Super Chat, then it's probably not available in your country. And that does happen too. But you don't have to. I am not in any way asking, requiring, or dictating that donations is something you must do. It is not. You have overall, the people visiting my site and watching my videos have been very generous at purchasing course notes, practice exams, and I hope, is my goal, that when you purchase these products that you really are getting the value for your money. So it's another win-win, one-to-one. That's what I'm trying to do. Maybe it's just my upbringing that makes me feel guilty by just taking the money and not giving you anything in return other than my thanks, which is about as sincere of thanks as I can be, because I know how difficult it is to kind of collect all that money into a little pile and then give it away to someone else. So I really do appreciate it, and it does help what we are doing here. But I like the better idea of me giving you course notes and giving you practice exams and doing that. It just works better for me. I like it better. So don't feel bad if you don't have the option in your country to do a super chat. That's fine. We're good. But if it's not there, that's okay too. We're good. Your thanks. And you even saying, hey, God, I get emails all the time. Hey, passed my exam today. It was awesome. I used your content to pass my Security Plus, to pass my Network Plus, to pass my A Plus. That's awesome to me. I could, you can't live on that, but I do. I just take that with me everywhere. So that's the fun of this to me, is making that happen. So that's the key. Question in the chat room. This is a pretty good one because this came up recently. It's an interesting story. I'll tell you the two things I thought about. The question in the chat room, what do I think, Ken asks, what do I think of the end of the BlackBerry mobile device? Now, hold on. Let's see if I can, here we go. What do I think of it? Well, this is some context. I'm going to take off my headset here real quick. Let me see if I can find my BlackBerry. I used to have it up here. Is it up? Okay. So, can't even see it from this camera angle. So in the background, you've not been able to see it, are my BlackBerry. I know it's out of focus, but this doesn't autofocus. So this is a BlackBerry. I don't even remember which model. Another one, I think it's probably the same model or simply upgraded. And then the last one I had before I stopped using BlackBerry, this one is so old. You know when the plastic pieces of it start getting sticky? Now my hand is all sticky from the BlackBerry. I loved using my BlackBerry. I loved having those there. What am I going to do with my hands being all sticky now? This is, they were fantastic. I did use other types of systems in the meantime. But the BlackBerry was just so, you know what I liked? You know, the reason I couldn't leave BlackBerry was that keyboard. You talk to any BlackBerry owner, that keyboard, that was it, man, because you could type, and it was that tactile feedback. It was an actual real keyboard. I don't think this boots anymore. Was I smart enough to at least take the battery out? I don't even know. Let's see if I was. Yes, no battery. No battery in it. SIM card's still there. Not going to work, though. Probably T-Mobile box. Was it T-Mobile? Yeah, T-Mobile on that one. So, so the story with BlackBerry is that they're finally shutting off the servers that make those BlackBerries work. It has come to an end. It's either just happening or it's going to happen very shortly. And it's kind of sad, But who do you know walking around with these? It was when I was walking around with the BlackBerry, the newer one. It was color. What they call it? They call it the Curve. Has a little. It has a track wheel. Not track wheel. Just the wheel on the inside of it, so you can move around the screen with this little wheel and the buttons on the side to use this. We thought this was just amazing. It was trackball. It was a trackball. So the trackball that's here is it was sort of a new thing, and you could push on the trackball to click. It was sort of like having a trackball in Windows, except it was in this the newer BlackBerry operating system. And then the iPhone came out, and my friends that got the iPhone were looking at me and saying, "What are you doing with this clunky? Look, it's got a physical keyboard. What are you thinking? You need an iPhone." I thought, what do I need an iPhone for? I've got a BlackBerry. Look, it's color, and it's got a keyboard. Who is going to use a virtual keyboard on this big flat screen? How are you even use that? Can you even type on that? Nobody's going to use that. Nobody's going to use an iPhone. Apple, what is even Apple doing? They're barely a company at this point. What? They sold how many? Yeah, and then of course it blew up, and I got an iPhone and thought, wow, why didn't I get one of these earlier? Well, because I was stuck on the BlackBerry. So those BlackBerries, good times, but it's a good example of how the industry will leave you behind in a second if you do not keep up. And it's the same old story with these larger companies that have a great idea for what they want to do, and they just aren't able to execute, or they pick the wrong thing. That's the part I always find, is that they went with it. BlackBerry, you got to give them credit. They stuck with it, said, no, our technology is better than anybody else. And you know what? They weren't wrong necessarily, because all of the communication over the network and on the BlackBerry email systems, this was primarily an email technology, email and texting, but mostly email. It was all encrypted as part of the operating system. The government loved these because it was all encrypted. It was a very secure and very safe way to communicate. But it turns out that single feature does not make a product. That single feature does not make it happen. So that is the problem. Same thing, idea in the chat room. Good example were the Nextel phones. Nextel, of course, was acquired, and that sort of created a number of problems. I was watching something on television, walking by, because I rarely am watching something on TV. I wish I could remember what it was. And somebody picked up the phone, and it made the Nextel beep. Beep, beep, and they talked into it. And I thought, wow, when's the last time you've seen one of those? I thought that was a feature that, because I used those Nextel phones at the time, that was a feature I thought that's a deal breaker. You can't lose this Nextel phone. It's so nice to have that walkie-talkie feature. And then turns out we did. We saw the iPhone, and you know what? Didn't have encryption built in at the time. Did not have a walkie-talkie at the time. Now we got the walkie-talkie on our watches. We didn't have that. Did it matter? It didn't, as it turns out. It wasn't the feature that was the deal breaker that we thought it was. And so that is really the interesting part. And there were a lot of other things that were pluses and minuses around BlackBerry. Of course, it was not a U.S. company. They were based in Canada. Not that that's good or bad, but when you're talking about security and governments and things associated with that, there's always a concern about who has access to the data. And there were a number of challenges along those lines with China and everywhere else. And you get into political intrigue, and they just have a great way of ruining technology. Because technologists just love technology for technology's sake. Once you start involving politics, it seems to create problems for everything, regardless of which side of the political spectrum you happen to be on. It's always a challenge to kind of balance the technology around that. Now, as it turns out, even politics in company politics, nothing related to a government, company politics is a similar problem. There was someone really smart I worked with back in the day that said, because I would get very frustrated early in my career about why are they being so political about this issue? There's a group of managers on this side and a group of managers on this side, and they're sticking us in the middle, and I hate that. And he said, guess what? That's going to happen everywhere regardless of what you do. So your best bet is to figure out how to work with this, how to be one with the process, and how to make it happy for you, because the politics is going to be there. How you handle it is going to be the important part. And he was absolutely right. It's kind of changed my perspective of the whole thing. Instead of me fighting the system, instead of me fighting them being political, don't stop them being you're not going to stop them being political. That's what he said. They're going to be political because that's just humans. You need to figure out how to make the whole process happy for you. So no matter what they do, you're good. You know, take the political piece out of it. What do you want to do? All right. I'm getting paid on Friday, right? Okay. You know, there's a whole different perspective when you look at it that way. So it makes sense to me. So who knows with BlackBerry? I noticed that BlackBerry's still around. I was doing some work with someone recently. They aren't using BlackBerry phone software. The software they're using this was a secure type software communication that's powered by BlackBerry. So they're still around. They're still trying to find a way to make it back. Don't count them out yet. They will figure it out here eventually. And who knows? We'll have to see what happens with BlackBerry and with what they end up being. These stories are many and varied in this IT industry. You never know what's going to happen. And I think that's a good place to probably focus on this. So when they turn them off, I won't know that they turned off the server, but my poor BlackBerry will just no longer be available for this. Let's do one more question in the chat room. Henry asks, I'm doing an IT internship right now. Congratulations on your internship. I hope you are taking lots of notes and learning as much as you can. Henry asks, should I skip A+ and go to Network+? The internship is not as IT focused as I would like. I think A+ is a great place to start. It probably provides you with the most options when you are looking for that entry-level IT job. There are certainly IT jobs that are looking for Network+, but I bet if you went out and looked at the jobs in your area, that in most places, A+ comes up more than others. Now, that's not necessarily true everywhere you go. I've mentioned before that if you live in the Washington, D.C. area, Virginia, Maryland, D.C., and you'll notice a lot of the entry-level jobs would like you to have Security+. It's sort of a byproduct of the DoD requirements that are there in Washington. So it tends to bleed over into other parts of the industry or the other parts of government. And everybody wants you to have Security+. But for everywhere else that is not a federal government-focused entity, A+ tends to be a pretty important one. State and local government, love A+. Corporations, love A+. It's really one of the only entry-level certs out there. So why not focus on A+? Plus, the information you're going to learn from A+ is really good stuff you'll be able to use your entire career. You want to build your own computer? You can do that. You want to troubleshoot Windows. You want to be more familiar with how to troubleshoot. You want to know how to use Task Manager better. You want to be able to understand how to troubleshoot partitions, the startup process, Windows in general. That's A+. So A+ is a great place to go. Look at the jobs in your area. See what they are asking for. And not just every job. Find the jobs that match what you can do. You think you're a good candidate for a help desk? Go look at every help desk job in your area. What are they asking for? Are they all asking for A+? Are none of them asking for A+? Are they asking for Network+? Are they asking for Security+? Are they not asking for anything? The best way to do it is to go do that research, make the spreadsheet, list it out, get some real data. And once you have the real data, now you're making an educated decision about what you should be doing with the rest of your career, or at least what you're doing with the next few months. Question very quickly that was sort of a follow-up to that. My son just started, George says, my son just started to study a 3-month course for CompTIA A+. Is he going to be able to get certified? Well, yeah, you got plenty of time. This existing A+ certification as it sits today, we know will be here until at least July if they maintain the same process that they have always maintained. It may even be after that. We don't know. But I think July is plenty of time. Got half a year plus to be able to go through and learn everything. You got 7 months at this point to be able to do that. You got plenty of time to earn this certification. And especially if you're taking a course along with it, no problem. You got it. No problem. And just go tell them to go get it. Tell them not to wait. Take the class, take the tests, go pass the tests, get your A+, stick in your pocket. Put it on your resume. Absolutely do that. Now is the time. Do not wait. Never wait to get certified. Never, never, never wait to get certified. There's a couple times you probably should wait, but never wait. Overall, generally speaking, never wait to get certified. We could probably talk about those next time too. Make that happen. That kind of brings us to, we went to overtime on this one, but that's okay. I think we made it with the busted earpiece. Everything seemed to work fine on the video side. We made it just fine, and your questions this time were phenomenal. Thank you so much for the questions, for the interaction, for the comments. We have such a great chat room. If you've never come live to one of these events, we'd love to have you here. If you're watching this on the replay, visit professormesser.com/calendar. Find out when the next live event is going to be. We'd love to take your questions and talk with you as well in the chat room. If you're watching the replay, you see the live chat going by. You can see how much fun this is. We'd love to have you here. We do one of these next week. Stop back by Wednesday of next week. We'll do a Network Plus study group. I haven't even written the questions yet. I probably should get busy. That's what I'll be doing the rest of the day. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time on the A+ study group.